It was a frantic situation in front of Brian and Nicole Albert's home in Canton, Massachusetts on the morning of January 29th, 2022. Police, emergency vehicles, first responders, and 3 civilian women were on the scene. On the front lawn of that home, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, partially buried in the snow, frozen and lifeless. It was the scene of a tragic death, and prosecutors say it was murder. One of the 3 women who had pulled up to the scene was Karen Reed. She was described as hysterical by witnesses. She was John O'Keefe's girlfriend. She attempted CPR before first responders arrived. She was physically and mentally shaken. Witnesses say she was repeating the phrase, "I hit him, I hit him." Prosecutors believe that's a confession and have charged Karen Reed with the murder. Karen Reed doesn't agree. In fact, she's claiming her innocence and says she dropped John off at a party inside that house, and someone in that house murdered John and conspired with local and state police to frame her. And now the lead investigator on the stand and in the hot seat, being confronted by the defense with unprofessional, inappropriate comments he allegedly made about the investigation and the defendant, Karen Reed. Tonight, we'll examine the testimony of Trooper Michael Proctor as we continue our investigation into the tragic death of Officer John O'Keefe. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. We've got a big hour in store for you. And I don't know what your day was like. May not have been the best day of the week. You might have had a wonderful day. But I will say this, lead investigator Trooper Michael Proctor, he had a rough day. It was not easy for him. It was not easy for anyone to watch what happened today as he was being cross-examined and confronted with all the things that he had texted and written to high school buddies and his superiors, things that were completely and utterly, admittedly from his perspective, inappropriate, unprofessional, and 1,000% regrettable. One of the things that came out is that he hates David Yannetti. Hates him. Absolutely hates him. And he hates him because he claims that he has falsely accused him of doing things and has tarnished his reputation and his career. That's why he says he hates David Yannetti. Had to admit that on the witness stand. He also had to admit that he at least texted that he wanted Karen Reed to die by suicide, the defendant in the case. Now, he said it was just his emotions got the best of him. It's just an expression, but he's taking the time to actually text that. I believe that one was to his sister. So this is bad. And all the other things, words that he's used and things that he's called the defendant and things that he has joked around with his buddies, et cetera, it's all bad. But it leads to one place, which is the question of, in light of all that, can he, as the lead investigator, lead a fair and impartial investigation in this case? That's the takeaway. Now, you can not like him, or you can discount it as, locker room talk, whatever your perspective is. But the most important part of all of that is whether or not, in light of doing all of this, he can lead a fair and impartial investigation of this defendant in the most serious of all types of investigations, a homicide/murder investigation. So let's bring in Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, joining us live from the courthouse in Dedham, Massachusetts, where all of this happened today. Tense and intense is the way I would describe it from here. How would you describe today? And what about when he has to get into his relationship with the Alberts?
Hey, Vinny, nice to see you. Well, I would describe it in one word: uncomfortable for everybody in that courthouse and that courtroom behind me. You know, I was watching the jury. I was in the courtroom today, and the jury members were not too happy. They were reacting to this testimony today. The cross-examination of lead investigator, Trooper Michael Proctor, on the stand for almost the entire day, having to answer a lot of questions. And it was really the defense in those questions that were fueling their theory about a police cover-up, questioning him about why he didn't consider other suspects, why he didn't question other witnesses soon enough, because that was done months later, it turned out, and then his relationship with those Alberts, which seemed to evolve right in front of this jury's eyes today. Take a listen.
I did not know the McCabe's. I don't know most of the Alberts, and I have little to no relationship with Chris and Julie.
That was a lie, wasn't it?
No, absolutely not.
You stand by that testimony?
Yes.
That you don't know at the time that you testified, that you didn't know the Alberts or any members of the Albert family?
They don't have relationships with them.
Okay. My question is, you keep going back to relationships. I'm asking you, did you testify that you didn't know them?
Objection.
I'll let him have it. Do you understand the question, Trooper?
I knew Chris, Julie, and Colin.
10 days before Mr. O'Keefe's death, you were texting with your sister about whether Julie Albert might be available to babysit for your own son, correct?
Yes.
So in fact, your relationship with the Alberts was close enough that you would consider leaving your own child in the hands of Julie Albert as a babysitter, as a caregiver for your toddler, correct?
I wouldn't say close enough.
Did you make any concerted efforts to keep Colin Albert's name out of this investigation?
No.
Why is it, Trooper Proctor, that Colin Albert's name fails to appear in a single police report until July 18, 2023?
Colin Albert was not at the home. He left at approximately 12:10 a.m. before anyone from the waterfall had arrived back there.
Before you ever interviewed Julie, your sister informed you that Julie actually wanted to get you a gift for your participation on this case, correct?
Yes.
You said you never asked for a gift, correct?
Correct.
What's your next text?
Get Elizabeth one.
Get Elizabeth one what?
Referring to a gift.
Right. So you did, in fact, ask for a gift, didn't you?
For my wife, who had been home with my children for the last 10 nights.
From Julie Albert?
Yes.
For your participation on this case?
I don't know if that's yes.
Trooper Proctor, after you knew that Canton Police Department was conflicted off the case, you continued to have a very close relationship with yet another Albert, Kevin Albert, correct?
We worked on a cold case together.
So you did have a close personal and professional relationship with Kevin Albert, didn't you?
I'd say it was a professional relationship.
Drinking, socializing, maybe?
Once in a while.
Right. So it went beyond professional, right?
Yeah, acquaintances.
Yeah. Drinking acquaintances, right?
On several occasions, yes.
Socializing acquaintances, right?
On several occasions.
So when you told the jury a few minutes ago that you were aware of and knew of but didn't have relationships with 3 Alberts, Julie, Chris, and Colin, not quite true, is it?
Objection.
Sustained.
So as his characterization of each of those relationships of the Alberts change while he's on cross-examination, and Alan Jackson keeps asking the same question, I'm looking at the jury, and you had a juror that was rolling her eyes. You had another juror that was shaking her head when he was changing his answers. And then you had one woman that I was looking at that's in the jury box in the second row, and she was looking over at Reed. She put down her notepad, and then she turned her chair and started looking at Trooper Proctor in the witness box, and she started smirking. It's the most reaction that I've seen from this jury.
Well, I don't think we've ever seen, in years at least, and again, it keeps coming back to like Furman, like this. We haven't seen something like this with a lead investigator since the O.J. Simpson trial and Mark Furman. This is unreal. It's playing out in real time. Now, I think the big foundation of the attack of this trooper comes from those text messages, those really bad text messages And obviously they spent a lot of time on those today as well.
Yeah, when Cross began yesterday, or 2 days ago rather, they were diving into those text messages, and that's where we picked up today. Most of the day was surrounding these text messages that are vulgar, inappropriate. He said as much on the stand today. He had to read those words out loud once again, over and over again. And that's how the day started. Here's part of that testimony today.
Your assessment, personal assessment, that Karen Reed had struck this officer with a car, gave you license to call her a
Objection.
I'll allow it.
right?
Based on the evidence, sir, my motions got the best of me, so it was in poor taste. Yes, it was it was inappropriate, juvenile, but it was my motions had gotten the best of me.
And you called her a whack job. Gave you license to call her that too.
Yes.
Gave you license to say to your friends, oh, no. She's right?
That's what I wrote.
Gave you license to say that she's a
Again, another disgusting comment.
Sir, you had an agenda from moment one, did you not?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you have an agenda?
Objection.
Your narrative was she hit him with a car. You get to talk about her leaky balloon knot, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
A lot of vulgar language, a lot of expletives that were said over and over again today in front of this jury. And how were they reacting? Well, they looked really uncomfortable, Vinny. Most everybody in the courtroom, it's a very tight quarters. You've been in there. It was a very uncomfortable feeling.
It had to be. It absolutely had to be. You know, it was interesting today, Matt. Finally, we heard the prosecution's theory in the redirect of Michael Proctor.
Right, because we're still waiting for them to connect the dots in all of this, or at least that's what some people are saying that I talked to. We've seen a lot of evidence. This jury has been shown key pieces of evidence, including the broken glass that Lank showed to the jury. He took it out of an evidence bag. That was a powerful moment in front of this jury. Then there was also showing of the broken taillight pieces that were collected at the scene, even some very large pieces, and that was shown by some of the investigators, including Proctor. Well, today we finally heard the Commonwealth's theory in connecting these pieces together and to what they say Karen Reed did that night. Take a listen.
The time that you made those inexcusable and unprofessional comments, what did you believe the defendant had done to Mr. O'Keefe?
I believe, based on all the physical evidence and facts, Mr. O'Keefe got out of that vehicle holding that cocktail glass he walked out of the waterfall bar with. Ms. Reed pulled ahead and then backed into him, struck him with her vehicle, and then left.
So where are we with the case? It's been going on for more than 7 weeks now. I'm being told that the Commonwealth is wrapping up their case in chief. So we expect them to rest either the end of this week, the beginning of next week, and then the defense has shortened their case for the number of people that they're going to call. But we expect, again, that to be next week, Vinny.
Matt Johnson, thank you so much. In the middle of it in Dedham, Massachusetts. We'll speak again tomorrow. So I get back to this initial question that I have. Can he lead a fair and impartial investigation of this defendant? I'm going to need some help. I want to get an expert opinion on that. So joining me tonight, former Houston Police Department homicide detective Phil Waters is back with us. Phil, great to see you. This is going to be a very different kind of interview. I've never done one quite like this because I wrote down my questions here. I have not shown them to you, but I have a series of questions I want to ask you because I want your expert opinion with all your experience, your honest opinion about these. So let me begin with this first one, and I have a bunch of them to get to. Would you recuse yourself from an investigation if you had to interview witnesses who were good friends with your sister who happens to be your best friend?
Well, aloha, Vinny, from the Big Island. Thanks for having me back. I tell you, a question like that it's going to be related to the circumstances. So I would have to have a little bit broader perspective if I was just going to give a yes or no answer on that.
Okay, so it's not
But
an
I can
automatic.
tell you
So it's not an automatic recusal if, in fact, you have to interview witnesses who were friends with your sister.
No, because I would have to. Now, I will tell you this. The other side of that coin is that if I felt like I was compromised in any way that would affect that investigation, I would immediately recuse myself. So that's the answer, I think, to that question. But again,
no,
it
I've got
depends
you.
on the circumstances.
No, that's a perfect answer. That's a perfect answer. I wanted to know if it would be like automatic, and it's not. But you have to like look at it and say, okay, is that going to compromise me? Next one. If a body was found on the front lawn of a home near the street, but on that front lawn, would you search that home as part of your investigation?
Only if evidence led me to procure a search warrant or get a consent to search. Only if the evidence led me that direction.
Okay, so again, not automatic. Not automatic. You would need something to get you there. Fair enough.
Right.
Okay, let me ask you this one, because you've investigated so many cases. Could you be certain about a suspect's guilt 16 hours into the investigation, excluding anyone else?
Again, it would depend on the type of investigation. If we have an investigation we call a smoking gun, we know who the person is. There's no doubt that this is the person who committed the act. Then the answer to that question would be sure. If it is a whodunit, which in this case, it's kind of a mix between the two, it would take, it's a possibility that you could come to that conclusion given on the evidence that you know at the time. But then you have to be open-minded and objective to letting the evidence lead you in a different direction if that's in fact what happens.
Okay. Would you continue seeking homicide charges if the medical examiner's determination was undetermined?
And you're talking about the manner of death?
Yes.
That they didn't rule it? Yeah. Well, there is a possibility. Again, we're talking about possibilities here. It depends on the case. It depends on the circumstances. But just to offer an aside on this particular case, I think that she's been overcharged with the murder. So to me, this lays out as a vehicular manslaughter.
Gotcha.
But, you know, I think they're really reaching for the murder thing.
Okay. Now, this is the strange part of the interview, Phil, and I apologize ahead of time, but there's a bunch of inappropriate things that were allegedly done here. If I'm going to give you a scale from 0 to 10 on how inappropriate it is, if it's really inappropriate, 10, not inappropriate at all, 0, I'm just going to read a bunch of things. Just give me a number, and then I have one question at the bottom of it, okay? Does that work for you? Okay. Thanks so much, Phil. And I apologize. This is such a strange interview. Okay.
Do I get a prize at the end of the...
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. 0 to 10. Referring to the suspect as a whack job with your superiors in text messages.
On a scale, I'd say 11.
11. Okay. Speaking to your sister about witnesses you have to interview as part of the investigation.
He's phrasing it that way, that he has to interview them?
People that he's going to interview, talking to your sister about the people he's going to interview before he interviews them.
It would depend on circumstances, but that's on the low end, maybe a 2 or a 3.
Okay. Texting with your high school buddies about an ongoing investigation 16 hours into that investigation.
That's a 12.
Texting about the body and the hotness of a suspect with your high school buddies 16 hours into an investigation.
That's a 15.
Searching a suspect's phone without having first determined if there were any attorney-client communications on that phone once you confiscate it.
Well, again, that would depend on the circumstances. Did he get a consent to search? Did he have a search warrant and so forth and so on? So I don't know that I would even put that on a scale. not knowing what the circumstances were.
Okay, and I've got one more. Texting with your superiors about looking for nude pictures of the suspect on her confiscated phone.
No, that's another 15. That's off the charts.
Okay.
If
If someone did all this, could they be fair and impartial in the investigation?
Well, you're using the term fair. You know, in my business, fair is what you pay a taxi. So I would say objective and impartial. Given all of that, the preponderance of the evidence here would be that he's already skewed to an opinion early on into this investigation based on some things that really have nothing to do with the investigation. So I would say in this particular case, it leaves the appearance that he was not objective and, to use your word, not impartial when he got into this thing.
Phil Waters, legendary homicide detective, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Appreciate your honesty and your expertise. When we come back, folks, we will bring in our insiders. And don't forget, there they are, getting ready. Nick Rocco, Peter Ellikin, and Kevin Lenahan. Plus, coming up next hour, we're going to be talking about the latest in the Madeline Soto case. New evidence revealed. We're going to show it to you.
This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
It's a controversial case that's divided a community.
Karen Reed is accused of murdering her police officer boyfriend.
Prosecutors say she ran him over on purpose and left him to die in the cold.
But Reed claims that she's being framed.
It smells suspicious.
After years of legal fireworks, will the truth finally be revealed?
The end game is to figure out who killed John O'Keefe and hold these people responsible.
The Killer or Cover-Up Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
As the lead investigator and the case agent, you're aware it's also your responsibility and your obligation to investigate all potential individuals, right? All potential suspects.
Yes.
You're obligated to investigate anybody who would have a motive, a means, and an opportunity to commit the crime or the offense, correct?
Correct.
Motive includes anything from financial gain to could just be revenge, right?
Yes.
Could be a lover's quarrel, correct?
Yes.
Or it could be someone who's interested in someone romantically, correct?
Could be an argument inside of a vehicle.
Oh, you saw what he did there, right? So this is the big setup by Alan Jackson, the attorney, setting up the other potential suspect in the case. Let's take a look at how that went. His name is Brian Higgins.
You waited until February 10th to conduct a pre-scheduled interview with Mr. Higgins, didn't you?
Yes.
And you interviewed him in the presence of his attorney, correct?
Correct.
He told you that he was engaged in a flirtatious relationship with Miss Reed?
He did.
As a matter of fact, he told you that he was engaged in a flirtatious relationship with Miss Reed over text messages, but on at least one occasion that resulted in a kiss, correct?
Yes.
And then he also told you that he had taken the liberty to extract certain conversations from his own cell phone, right?
Correct.
And he brought you a hard copy of those text messages, right?
He did.
And you knew that those text messages were messages that he curated to give to you, right?
Yes.
He's the one that made the determination of what was important, what was not important to give to you, his interviewer, right?
Objection.
Was that your understanding, Trooper?
It was my understanding Mr. Higgins was being very forthcoming by providing those messages. It's not uncommon for witnesses to take screenshots or send us emails or send us text messages, so he just had a different means of producing text messages.
So you became aware pretty early on that Mr. Higgins at least had a motive to want to visit harm on John O'Keefe, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, absolutely not.
Well, you knew he had this flirtatious relationship with Karen Reed, is that right?
Yes.
You became aware that he ignored, you saw the text messages, you became aware that Karen Reed actually ignored text messages from Mr. Higgins while at the Waterfall Bar and Grill with John O'Keefe, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Yes.
And you're aware that at 12:20 a.m., Brian Higgins sent a text message to John O'Keefe, coaxing him to 34 Fairview, correct?
Objection.
I'll see you at sidebar on this.
Do you recall a text from Brian Higgins to John O'Keefe after they left Waterfall. Where are you at?
I don't recall that one either.
Did you know that on January 29th at 2:22 a.m., there was a call between him and Brian Albert that morning?
I was not aware of that.
Might have been important to your investigation, don't you think?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Depends what that. I don't know what the call was about.
Sorry, finish that.
I don't know what the call was about. I don't know if they actually connected and communicated what the length of the call was, so.
Right. And you never asked, did you?
I was unaware that call took place.
All right, let's get some reaction. Let's bring in our trial insiders. Joining us tonight, Karen Reed supporter, creator of Justice for Officer John O'Keefe and Karen Reed Facebook page, Nick Rocco. Also with us, criminal defense attorney, college instructor, and author, Peter Ellikin. And the YouTuber behind Yellow Cottage Tales, Kevin Lenahan, is back with us as well. Great to see everyone tonight. Nick, this was a big, big day for the defense. This moment, though, is interesting to me because it's not just about undermining Trooper Proctor's lack of investigation. It's some finger pointing taking place. What do you think? Is this the guy?
Well, it clearly shows that from day one, he believed that this was Karen Reed and never looked in any other direction except for the target that he wanted, which was Karen Reed. He didn't know about Brian Higgins' phone calls because Brian Higgins extracted his own cell phone and only provided 2 pairs of text messages that Michael Proctor said today, yeah, that's not unusual for a witness, to do that once in a while. But then when he's confronted about what he says in front of the feds, he told the feds that that's never happened to him before. So this man is lying. His credibility is shot. At this point in the case, Adam Lally should have never redirected him. He should have just let him get off the stand. The jury does not believe anything from this man. And at this point, I think the jury is focused more on Proctor than anything else that was talked about in this case. So the Commonwealth really, really had a big loss today and basically all week. There really hasn't been a win for the prosecution. There's so much reasonable doubt in this case that the jury's going to have this selection on which way they want to go with this when it's time to make a decision. This case is over.
Kevin, what'd you think about it? What'd you think about that cross-examination today?
I tell you what Nick just said was really interesting. He said that Proctor, that first day, believed it was Karen Reed. But Nick's whole theory and the defense's whole theory they've been pushing is that Proctor knew that it was Colin or something else, and they were trying to frame Karen Reed. That's a very different issue than talking about tunnel vision, where an investigator seizes on a leaf too quickly instead of searching everything else. So I also noticed today that they didn't, like Johnny Cochran asked Mark Furman back in the day, have you ever planted evidence? They didn't ask Michael Proctor that. They didn't ask him, did he plant evidence in this case? And the defense's theory depends not on showing that Trooper Proctor had tunnel vision about this case or had family connections or had obnoxious texts. It depends on them showing, to back up their claim, that Karen Reed was framed, because the physical evidence indisputably links Karen's SUV to the crime. So unless somebody planted all that evidence, and we had 9 troopers at the scene and then the 2 inside the garage that would all have to be in on it, unless they're all in on it, there's no conspiracy, and Karen did it.
How much damage today, Peter Ellikin, and is this a case about a bad investigation by a bad lead investigator, or is it being established that someone is being framed here?
First of all, yeah, I think that at this point, the prosecution's case is an absolute free fall. It's been a bloodbath the last couple of days of court. And then I wanted to put that caveat. I have seen cases, we've all seen it, turn around, somebody gets, at the last minute. I won't rule out that the prosecution can win here. You've seen people do a grand slam in the bottom of the 9th. But at the moment, it looks really, really bad. And one of the problems that I do have here is, and forget about that Proctor may be unlikable to the jury now and all the repugnant, vile, horrible things that he said that may just disgust everybody. I'm going on the evidence, really, and the way that he conducted his investigation. Again, it came out under cross-examination today that he decided that he would not even investigate anything inside the house.
So are you now Is this a rush to judgment case or a frame? Like, rush to judgment, I've seen that many times since OJ, but a frame job is something completely different. Like, these are two different things.
But let's keep in mind, we haven't heard the defense yet. We've only heard the prosecution side. Certainly, the defense is going to bring that up again and again. I mean, normally, most cases, prosecution has a clear sailing when they present their case, and maybe the defense can knock a few holes in it, ask some questions, but then we have to wait until the defense goes. Here, the prosecution has not done well, and it's still their case right now. But I want to hear, this case is not like over yet. We haven't heard
it's not over. It's not over till it's over. Trial's a living, breathing entity. Things happen that we don't expect. I want to play one other quick moment here. Take a look at this, because this was something that was actually stricken by the judge.
Miss Giannetti shows up at my sister's school yesterday in the parking lot where he's not welcomed, or where people are not supposed to be. With one of their witnesses and their private investigator, and a teacher sees this. It informs Mr. Giannetti that he can't be there, and instead of saying okay and leaving, he asks, "Is Courtney Proctor in the building? Does she work here?" She calls me to see if she was being served.
Objection. Can we approach?
It was all stricken, but Peter, in just like 10 seconds, tell me, does this happen? Do like the lawyers show up at one of the witnesses' sister's parking lot to serve a witness in the middle of the case?
No, normally that wouldn't happen, but I want to hear the other side here. I mean, I don't necessarily, we've caught Proctor in so many lies and examinations, and I can point them out, that I'm not ready to just go on that and make a decision.
Gotcha.
That just happened.
Gotcha. All right. We've got a lot more to get to. Like, did Trooper Proctor plant the pieces of taillight? This is the physical evidence that links Karen Reed's SUV to the crime scene. It's crucial. We'll take a look next.
Fact of the matter is, you delivered that car to Canton PD, to the Sallyport garage, before a single piece of taillight material was ever found in this case. Trooper Proctor, is that correct?
Correct. It arrives at 5:31.
Big issue here. This is like the ultimate issue, really, because did Trooper Proctor have time to plant the evidence? Let's take a listen to his testimony here, talking about when Karen Reed's SUV is seized, because the theory of the defense is that he's taking pieces off of her car and then going over to the crime scene and planting it under the snow. Let's take a listen.
You were responsible for seizing Miss Reed's car, correct?
Yes.
And you originally claimed that that seizure took place at 5:30 p.m. Is that right?
Correct.
You signed numerous affidavits under oath, claiming that you did not seize Miss Reed's vehicle until 5:30 p.m. on January 29, 2022, right?
Correct.
At the time that you seized Miss Reed's vehicle, you were unaware that there was alarm.com surveillance footage of the area from which the car was seized, correct?
Correct.
The fact of the matter is, that was false. The car was not seized at 5:30, was it?
4:16 p.m.
Right. An hour and change, an hour and 18 minutes, hour and 20 minutes earlier. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you ever seek to change or amend the error, the false statement about the time?
So,
or seized in any of those documents that you filed under oath?
When I incorrectly transcribed the times, it was on the first affidavit I had written. And then as I continued to write other search warrants, I used that as a template. So I never caught it on the first one, and that's the reason those times are off on the other affidavits I had wrote.
So the first one was false, and then every single one after that was false too.
It was just an incorrect transcription of time.
An incorrect transcription of the time.
Yes.
Call that, I don't know, a Scrivener's error?
Objection.
Ask it differently.
Sure. Was it a typo?
Yes.
It was a typo. So you got the 4 wrong, you got the 1 wrong, and you got the 6 wrong. And those turned into 5 and 3 and 0, right?
They were typos, sir.
Okay, this is the video. This is the alarm.com footage that established the time that her car was actually seized. Now, let's take a look at a map right now so you can see where Karen Reed's parents' house is, and to get to the Canton Police Department, it's about 40 minutes, right? Depending upon traffic and weather and conditions at the time. So that's where they seize it. That's when they seize it. Let's take a look at when it arrives at the Canton Police Department, Sallyport. And there it comes in at 5:36. So you're looking at this time. So is there time to get this SUV, take pieces of the tail light off the back there as you wander around out of view of the camera? Is there? Let's bring back in our insiders, Nick Rocco, Peter Ellikin, Kevin Lanahan. Nick, so explain to me, when would these pieces be taken? When it gets back to the Sallyport?
Either when they got back from the Sallyport, if those 42 minutes weren't missing, it would absolutely clear everybody from this, what everybody wants to call a conspiracy. But that 42 minutes is missing to show what all those people were doing behind her vehicle. But conveniently enough, it continued working after the time. At 5:50, it continued working, and the camera came back on.
What is the window of time? When would these pieces have been taken, and who would have brought them there at what time?
Well, so, realistically, there could kind of be a factor of things here, because they did not take a picture of her vehicle in Dighton when they got full possession of that vehicle. When they seized the vehicle, it's now in state police custody. They should have pictures of the damage. And what we heard earlier was there was a crack and a piece missing, not what the state's providing. So it could have been right then and there, or most likely it did happen at the Canton PD. We don't know what happened to the vehicle from 5:31 to 5:36 when they brought it into the garage. But it's just convenient enough that the one video that would absolutely clear all these people's names is not there.
Kevin, I know this is a big issue for you. This is a big issue for you on the timing of this. From your perspective, how does the timing work or not work?
Yeah, facts and timelines are stubborn things, right? There's just no time here. I actually pulled up today some local news footage that also shows the crime scene right after the state police had finished processing it at 34. In the area they dug out, this is at 34, this was from WBZ News, and the area they dug out is about 2 car lengths. That's it. So you had 7 troopers digging shoulder to shoulder inside basically 2 parking spaces, and that they started before 5:41, but all 7 of them were there, started by 5:41. Also, Trooper Tully was there, and one other trooper and Canton cops. The earliest that Michael Proctor could have got there would have been maybe 5:45. And that's the time they found the main piece. There's just, so to believe that Michael Proctor was in on it is also to believe that Yuri Buchanan, who was with him all the time, was in on it, and also to believe that Tully and the 7 troopers of the SERT team were on it. So it just, the timeline doesn't work out. And we don't want to, we also have to ignore all the other evidence that shows that taillight is in pieces. At 8:22, the dash cam footage. At 5 o'clock, 5:07, the ring footage. Kerry Roberts' testimony. She was shown a picture of it, and she described it as exactly it was found later, and the defense chose not to challenge her. So, it's just not really any dispute here. If
Let me go to Peter before we run out of time. Peter, is it possible the jury focuses on the timeline and can put aside all of the troopers' text messages and everything else and just zoom in and try to figure out if there was time to plant the evidence?
Yeah, ideally it would be nice if you stepped away from all the emotionalism, and if you thought he was a hateful person and he was a bad person and all that, but they can look at the evidence, and so they can make their decision there. And I don't see this as absolutely conclusive that it could not have been planted with a brief timeline there, particularly when it never showed up until after they seized the SUV. Earlier in the day, they had loads of police officers looking for that in the morning, and they didn't find anything, and they had the leaf blower and they didn't find anything, and suddenly it's all of 40-something.
All right, we are out of time for tonight. Big thank you. We lost you. We lost you there for a second. Sorry, but Nick Rocco, Peter Ellikin, Kevin Lanahan, thank you so much.